Hey gang, there aren't many shots in pool prettier than the masse shot, but then the shot that you most likely are to use in a match is obviously the draw shot. The draw shot is one of the prettiest shots in pool. It is one of the most useful in most games, and a lot of beginner and intermediate players tend to have a difficult time executing this shot. The purpose of this video is to teach you the fundamentals so that you can learn this shot and then later apply English as you see being used in the examples above. The long draw shot, as you can see on the screen, is quite a pretty shot when it's done properly, and the point of this video again is to get you to the point where you can execute the drill that you're currently looking at, which is my advanced long draw drill, which you may have seen in other videos. The key here, as we go step by step, is to find where the holes are in your draw shot and fix them. So without having ever met you, I'm going to give you an idea of the errors that most players make and allow you to go from A to Z and put things together so that wherever your flaws may be, you can correct them. The first thing that we want to look at is your bridge. Without question, a closed bridge is much more effective than an open bridge when shooting a draw shot. So it's important that you learn how to make a closed bridge if you're going to shoot long draw shots in the future. The proper way to make a closed bridge is lay your hand on the table with your fingers facing the cue ball. Wrap your index finger around the cue as tight as possible, letting the cue slide into that little V section that's going to be created by your thumb. This will allow you to keep the cue straight, keep a firm grip on the cue, and follow through, which is the next thing that we want to look at. So practice making this closed bridge if you haven't been doing so in the past. And another important point when it comes to your bridge is the length of your bridge. When I say length, I'm talking about the distance between the cue ball and your bridge hand. To make a strong draw shot, it's important to be able to execute this shot with a longer bridge. A longer bridge allows you to gain more power. And as long as everything else is correct, the things that we've already talked about and the things we're going to talk about later in this video, the longer bridge will allow you to make longer draw shots. Your accuracy does drop with a longer bridge, but your power increases. So if you're looking to make long draw shots, the longer bridge is going to help you down the line. The next item we're going to look at is follow through. This is where many players make their mistake. When shooting a draw shot, do not yank the cue backwards. Don't worry about it hitting the cue tip at this point. We'll talk about that down the road. Right now you're going to assume that the cue ball is not going to hit your cue when it comes back. It's important that you follow through on all draw shots. If you look at the difference between where the cue starts in these shots and where it ends, you can see that the follow through is somewhere between 6 and 8 inches. The only time there should be any concern about the cue ball coming back and hitting the tip of your cue would be a relatively short draw shot where the shot is straight in. That's the only time the cue ball is going to return to your cue, and the only time you need to worry about getting it out of the way. And even on those shots, it's important that you follow through. The only difference is you're going to get your cue out of the way of the ball immediately after your follow through. The next item on our list is having a level cue. You'll see a lot of players jack up the cue, as in the shot that you see on the screen. This is absolutely wrong. There are going to be times when you need to shoot over another ball and still have to execute a draw shot, and those are the only times that your cue should be jacked up in this manner. It is very difficult to shoot a proper draw shot or a draw shot at all with the butt of your cue jacked up. What you want to do is shoot with as level a cue as possible, hitting the cue ball below center, as we'll talk about a little bit later, and with good follow through. If you're shooting down on the ball, you cannot do this. The next thing we're going to talk about is the strike point on a draw shot. When shooting a draw shot, you want to hit the cue ball not just below center, but as far below center as possible while maintaining a relatively level cue and without miscuing. A lot of players are afraid to hit the cue ball this low simply because they fear miscuing, and that comes from miscuing in the past. What these players often don't realize is that they miscued in the past not because of how low they're hitting the cue ball, but because they're hitting the cue ball without a proper stroke. Either the butt of their cue is raised and they're actually hitting the cue ball between the ball and the felt, which will cause a miscue obviously, or they're not getting proper follow through, or it's possible that their tip is not well conditioned. One of the last items we're going to talk about on this video is having a well conditioned tip. But in the meantime, if all things are in place, you should be able to hit the cue ball very low without miscuing, and that's your goal in shooting a well executed draw shot. Keep in mind, the only time you want to elevate your cue to shoot a draw shot is when you have to reach over another ball or a number of other balls. Having a good straight stroke is obviously important, and you can see that your elbow should be moving your cue back and forth, nothing else. But the thing that is most surprising to most intermediate and beginner players is the fact that a well-executed draw shot consists of having a very loose grip on the cue. Many players have what we call a death grip, where they're gripping the cue with a fist. This will cause you to not get enough motion within the cue and actually eliminates a lot of the power that you get when trying to shoot a draw shot or a break shot or any shot for that matter. There are very few shots in pool that don't involve having a loose grip. So make sure you're maintaining a loose grip on the cue. This tip alone will help most players increase their draw anywhere from 10 to 200%. The other thing you want to make sure is that your grip is straight, that you're not holding the cue out away from your body or in towards your body. This obviously is not going to give you a straight stroke, it's not going to give you good follow through, it's going to create all kinds of issues. So either record yourself shooting from all angles or have someone examine your shot, but make sure that you're shooting with a loose grip and a straight stroke, and the only thing that is moving during your shot is your arm moving back and forth. The last item we want to talk about is your cue tip. Not only is chalk important, but more important than having chalk on the tip is having the proper curvature to your tip. A properly cared for tip should have a curvature that is equal to a dime. There's also players that shoot with a nickel radius, which is not as sharp a curve, but most high-level players are going to be playing with a tip that is curved as much as a dime, as you can see in the illustration here. The reason the curve is important is that a cue ball is obviously round. A round tip creates more of a contact area on the cue ball. So whether you're shooting a draw shot, a left or right English shot, regardless, the curvature on your tip is going to allow more of your tip to make contact with the cue ball and give you an opportunity to not only put more spin on the ball, but make it less likely that you will miscue when shooting your shot. So there's a product on the screen right now that's made by a number of different companies. I recommend you get this. I recommend you learn to play with a dime curvature, even though it's scary to a lot of amateur players because they don't understand how important it is to have a curved tip. But this is something that you're going to have to get used to if you're going to play pool at a higher level. So let's put it all together. We have our closed bridge. We have our longer bridge, which allows us to put more action on the cue ball. Good follow through is definitely essential in shooting a draw shot. We have our level cue with good follow through, a low strike point, as low as we can get without miscuing. You need to stay down on the shot, which means you're executing the shot, you are not moving until that ball, the object ball, is in the pocket. The only time you're going to move before that object ball is in the pocket is if you do need to get your cue out of the way of the cue ball. But in 90% of shots, you will not need to move your cue out of the way. The last thing you're going to do in order to get good at this is do some drills. I know you hate doing drills. Everybody hates doing drills. But if you're going to get any better at pool, you're going to need to shoot drills. The first thing you need to do is be able to execute a perfect stop shot, as you saw on screen. Once you can execute that shot perfectly each and every time, what you want to move on to is a short draw shot. Here you're just looking to draw the cue ball back to that little piece of chalk that you see on the table. The third shot in your progressive drill is going to be to shoot with the cue ball about 10 inches from the object ball and draw the cue ball back to the end rail. Once you can do this consistently, then you want to move on to shot 4, where the cue ball is behind the head string. The object ball is still at the halfway point on the table, and you want to play the object ball in the corner, drawing the cue ball all the way back to the rail. Once you can do that consistently, you're going to move on to elite status. The cue ball behind the head string and the object ball at or beyond the foot string. You're going to play the object ball in the corner, draw the cue ball the length of the table, and back to the end rail. It may take months before you're able to execute all of these shots, but they're worth it. And once you can do them consistently, check out the draw shot video that shows advanced draw shots. There's a series that I have online with 3 advanced draw shots, and I think you'll find them interesting. It's okay to view them before getting to that elite status, but you're going to be able to need to execute strong draw shots in order to follow that video. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe and share this video with your friends.